What's up, guys? How have you been? Yeah, we haven't really been posting a whole lot, but we finished up some major events. We got the spreadsheet all caught up through the end of September now, so added like 140 topping decks to that. Link is in the description down below. Feel free to check it out if you would like. But today we're going to talk about what decks have been the best this format. It's probably not a big surprise. What decks have been best over the last month, being September, and we disregard the first 3 weeks as the format kind of settles and shifts. What other trends are we seeing in the current meta? And an overall breakdown of the tier list heading into set championship time. Which decks give you the best chance to go ahead and take those events down? So if we look at the format total going back to early August, Popsicle has officially overtaken Steel Song as the number one represented deck at 23%, Steel Song at 19%. Ruby Amethyst has held third pretty much the entire time, and Tempo has, as of late, been popping up more and more and solidified itself as that fourth spot. My image isn't really up to date for Green Steel, but nonetheless, Green Steel is exploding onto the scene after these recent DLCs 2 weekends ago, and it's a deck that I expect to really do well at set championships too. Lemon Lime Song, just one of those other decks that has an incredibly high ceiling but can be linear and difficult to pilot. Blue Steel, what happened to Blue Steel? Maybe with Green Steel popping up, Blue Steel gets a bit of resurgence. Blurple, Hyper Aggro, Pete's Bounce House, Repeat, if you will, and Ruby Fossa round out our tier 2-esque decks in that multiple percentage category. And then we have our others, which includes things like Jafar Wheel, Amethyst Steel Hyper Aggro, Lemon Lime Hyper Aggro, Pirates, Muses Songs, among decks to think about. Also Emerald Ruby Evasive. Like I said, though, this is going all the way back to the beginning of the format, and formats change. So formats change. Huh. Are you sure? Are you sure that they change? Popsicle is the number one over the last month. 72 total tops. Steel Song at 49. So we're going to talk about trends more in this category because, well, as you see, the overall breakdown is still actually rather similar. Trends, we see that Popsicle, instead of the 23%, is 26%, which means they've been doing even better as of late. That Steel Song at 18, 19% still, so holding steady. Ruby Amethyst Control still at that 16%, but Popsicle really jumping up here and taking over, which, what does that mean for the meta? That means we're going to see decks more built into taking out Popsicle heading into set championships as opposed to Steel Song. That's why we're seeing a resurgence in Green Steel, which we see here at 8% over the last month as opposed to the 6% over the course of the format. And if we look at just the last 2 weeks, I'd be willing to bet that Green Steel is up over 10% because the majority of these tops came in the last 2 weeks. So if we look in the last 2 weeks, Green Steel is really one of them decks skyrocketing to the top. And why is that? That is because Popsicle has just been overwhelming in taking out the Steel Song. So we're almost getting this weird triangle now of Popsicle, Steel Song, and Green Steel. And then you have a couple decks like Ruby Amethyst and Tempo that are kind of just in that middle ground where they're just overall good, not necessarily good or bad versus those matchups. They're just decent across the board and they're very consistent. So that's why we're seeing Ruby Amethyst and Tempo doing very well. Tempo also at 14%, which is up from that 12. So kind of like Green Steel, they are overperforming. Lemon Lime Song then the next, Blue Steel, Repeat, Hyper Aggro, Blurple. Ruby Fossa is the only one that falls into the other category with those other decks that we mentioned in the last one. Muses Songs has not topped in the last month. Amethyst Steel Hyper Aggro also has not topped in the last month. Those decks falling out of the category. So yeah, biggest takeaways here. Popsicle is the deck to beat now, not Steel Song, which inadvertently might shift that because Steel Song was the deck to beat, and that's why Popsicle became even better than it was already being really good, and that's why Green Steel's popping up now to take down that Popsicle deck. So in reality, we have a 5-deck format heading into set championships, and I think that's actually pretty healthy. I like where we're at. Lemon Lime Song, Blue Steel, Repeat, Aggro, Blurple, Mufasa. These decks could absolutely get you your prize cards, and depending on the size of the event, they could even get you your playmats. I'm not going to try to take away from them. They have the potential to do that, but if you're truly wanting to go and have your best chance at competing, you're going to want to bring Popsicle, Steel Song, Tempo, Ruby Amethyst, or Green Steel. As far as which deck's going to be the best, that's pretty difficult for me to answer. Is Steel Song super popular in your meta? Popsicle might be a good call for you then. Is Popsicle super popular in your meta? Green Steel might be a very good meta call for you then. Is your meta very diverse? Ruby Amethyst is probably the deck for you. Do you want to play a solid deck that's not one of those four? Guess what? Tempo offers another really good option. So it's hard for me to just come right out and say this deck, this deck, this deck, because it's really dependent on your local, on the size of the event, and the deck spread that you expect to see. If you do have some of that information and want to ask me down below, by all means, go for it, and I will try to give any advice that I can. If we want to go over decks, I did recently actually all of these top 5 decks, so go check the channel out if you want to see us breaking down Popsicle, Steel Song, Ruby Amethyst, Tempo, and Green Steel based on topping deck lists and doing it that way. The Green Steel video is based off of just the DLC tops, whereas the other 4 were from like the 2 weeks of tops prior to DLCs because we posted them before the DLCs. What other decks would you like to see? I might do a tempo breakdown of the DLCs, kind of like we did Green Steel, because it actually performed really, really well. And maybe we just do a meta trend video. What cards are seeing up and down play in each deck? I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, we have a tier list to get to. So if we break it down into a tier list just based off of percentages, once again, this is where we are. And once again, the Green Steel image needs updating. But, well, I'm busy and I'm lazy. So we're leaving the Robin Hoods there to represent it, even though it is absolutely a discard deck, centralizing around cards like Prince John, among other discarding cards. So, anyway, we have the Robin Hoods discard in there, which I would actually bump into that tier 1 category. I really think it just, like I said, overall in the format, overall last month, it's closer to tier 2. But if we look at since DLC, Green Steel is absolutely up in that top tier of decks. And I think the gap between Steel Song, Ruby Amethyst, Tempo, and Green Steel is very, very small. Actually, I can go ahead and look here at the last 2 weeks if you just bear with me really quick. What was it? 33 for Popsicle, doing this off of memory. I think 19 for Steel Song, 20 for Ruby Amethyst, 20 for Tempo, and 17 for Green Steel. So again, 17, 19, 20, 20, and then the jump up to 33. So those 5 decks are the 5 decks that you really need to beat. What about the Lemon Lime? Lemon Lime had 11 tops in the last 2 weeks, which is not too shabby, falling in that 9%-ish range, which means, like I said, it's probably the best tier 2 deck of the format, given the fact that we have 5 tier 1 decks. 5. I really, really like where we're going with that. I'm just saying, I really, really like it. Let me know, what deck do you think you're going to take? What deck do you expect to win the most? We're going to start a new tab on that spreadsheet linked down below for October, so we can go ahead and see which decks are going to perform. I will give my official expectations, predictions on which decks will get the most prize cards earned at the end of the week. And you might say, it's not that hard. Well, it's not that hard to get most of the top 10 correct, but it's kind of fun to do to see how accurate you can be. Stitch Championships, I had 9 of the top 10. I think only if you flip-flopped 2 of them, I would have had them in order. And then my honorable mention was actually the 10th deck being Blurple. Last format also, in the top 3, I had them a little bit out of order. I think Popsicle I had at 3rd, where it ended up in 2nd. And then I had Amethyst Steel a little bit higher than Blue Steel, and Blue Steel definitely outperformed it. But again, I had, I believe it was 8 or 9 out of the top 10, and only like 1 or 2 out of place for being in order. So it's a lot of fun, and neat to look back on. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Check out that spreadsheet to stay up to date on which decks are performing. Take care.